Welcome, everybody, to our second Saturday's poetry reading. Those of you who are joining us for the first time, we do this we don't always, we always get a distinguished poet. It's rare that we get someone as distinguished and accomplished as Carmen. So this is a really special program today. We do try to start promptly at 11 o'clock, and we do this the second Saturday. That's when we chose the title, and we said, let's call it what it is. So it's always the second Saturdays. You can set your watch by it. It always starts about 11 o'clock. In addition to the featured poet, we have the open read. So if you'd like to participate in the open read, just please put your name in chat. I see now we've already got 5 people in there. That's great. And when we get to that part in the program, I will call you in groups of 3 in the order that you put your name in chat. If you are chat challenged and have some other issue that makes it difficult for you to let us know that you want to read, between Kathy and Richard and myself, we'll go around at the end and we'll make sure that everybody who wants to read gets an opportunity to read. Please keep your microphone muted so we don't get the barking dogs, the phones and other distractions. So out of respect to your fellow poets, please keep yourself on mute. And when it's your time to speak, put on your mic, turn on your mic. Also, we do leave time at the end, which some people, it's their favorite time. We call it unstructured yak. An unstructured yak is we stop recording and you can interact with one another without any rules. So planned agenda, we say we go from 11 to 12. Depending upon how many people want to read, we like to practice the gospel of inclusion here. So if people want to read, we'll give them a chance to read. So we've been doing this virtually for almost 2 years now. We've never gone beyond 12:30. So 12:30 is our absolute cutoff. We generally finish up sometime between 12 and 12:15. So I will welcome you. I got a few opening comments. I'll turn it over to Richard. Richard has a poem he will read and he'd like to make some opening comments. He'll introduce Carmen. Carmen will be our featured poet. Then we'll get to the open read, and then we'll bring Carmen back for an encore. And then Richard will give us some concluding remarks and introduce the next poet. And Richard, I believe the next poet is actually with us today. So be mindful of that when you make your introduction. Feedback is a gift. So you'll see there, I have a very complicated email, danielbker@verizon.net. And I had been given some feedback recently that we do a lot of things at All Souls, and maybe I don't need to tell them all the things that we do. So, and also I recognize that a lot of you are regulars and you hear basically almost the same message every month. So I try to mix it up a little bit and try to focus on the things that you folks would be most interested in. So just 3 things. We do a bunch of things here, and I've only focused on 3, and I focus on the 3 that I think might be of interest to you. Carmen, there's a Romanian wind in the air today because we have a very talented, internationally accomplished Romanian violinist performing tonight. That's Joanne Romastu, I believe her name is pronounced. I have to practice my pronunciation. She'll be performing tonight at 6 o'clock. So if you're in Stony Brook, she's doing her doctoral work at the university. Has toured all over the world. I think gave her first concert at the age of 6. A wonderful violinist. And we do those concerts every month. And there's one tonight at 6 o'clock. That's why we call it Saturdays at 6. The poetry, you'll recognize those 2 folks there. That's the passing of the twig in the when Barbara became poet laureate. We do those again every month. We do those. We've been doing them virtually, and we'll be doing them virtually for the foreseeable future. We also do Native American drumming as well once a month. And again, if you're interested in those, I won't give any more detail other than say there's our website. Go to our website. You can learn about those. We do a whole bunch of other things as well, but I wanted to just make it shorter and focus on the big 3 that would be of most interest to you. 2 things I'd like you to also be aware of, and these are very, I think, applicable to the poetry group as I understand them. Under the direction of Carmen, Carmen put together a beautiful program called Conversations of the Sacred, where she selected sacred readings. And you'll notice what we do on the left, we'll have the poets, and you'll recognize many of those smiling faces there. They read the poem. Students from the university, and you see Richard there reading, students from the university do music that right after the poem, the period of reflection. And we also integrate, you'll see our Native American drummer sitting on the altar there. We also do Native American drumming there as well. So these big 3 outreach programs come together. So please consider joining us on August 6th for that. And then also, again, you'll recognize the folks pictured there. We do a 5K race, 2K walk every year, and that is to celebrate the role of the church in the community and also to raise funds to make the church handicapped accessible. Those of you who've been to the church know it's a beautiful structure at the top of the hill, and there are people like Gladys Henderson and others that would love to join us but cannot. So we not only do the race walk, the date is October 2nd, and you'll notice we have a group of poets called the Live Poet Society. I think Kathy Donnelly and Sharon Doyle started that 5 or 6 years ago. They march every year, so please consider joining your fellow poets for the walk. So on behalf of the Folks for All Souls, we welcome you here. And at this point, I'd like to turn it over to Richard. Richard, over to you. Got to turn your mic on.
Yep. Well, good to be here. I always look forward to this event so much and to share poetry with everyone, especially now in dealing with COVID and a war. And of course, I look forward very much to hear Carmen read in a few minutes. I've chosen one poem, the older poem from a little sequence I did called 6 Aspects of Love. And it came to mind just in that we've entered into spring, and the poem was written at that time a number of years ago and takes place on Cape Cod. We would very often go up to the Cape when my family was younger, this in May. So a birthday shirt by Lacoste. Lilac, not lavender or plum, worn with white OP shorts on banana boat days. Khakis and penny loafers, lilac and cut glass, candlelight and Merlot. A spring rain, 2 under a lilac tree, a white Universalist church. Lilac wafting on night air, a full moon, sizzle of tires on wet pavement. Earth odors and early morning light. Narcissus and crocus daffodils on the way. Taste of salt on your skin. Tan knees and thighs, lilac in your hair. Well, I want to move forward from my poem and go on to welcome Carmen to our poetry today. So Carmen is an extremely talented, special person, interesting background, born in Romania, and then long story how she and her family left. She was born under the dictatorship of Ceausescu, has lived in England, Ireland, France, and trained at both University of Michigan and then at Oxford at Balliol College. She's published several collections of poems. Poems have been translated. She's also published a very recent book of essays, Poetry in the Language of Oppression, and has a new collection of poems that I believe, just came out. And I welcome her to the Zoom podium at the Episcopal Chapel. Looking forward to hearing your poetry, Carmen, so much.
Okay, Carmen, over to you. Just have to put your microphone on.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much, Richard, for introducing me, and I'm really happy to be here. I recognize names from various events around Long Island, and I see friendly faces here, so it's really good to be here. The new book that is just out was actually published in the United States on April Fool's Day. So it came on April 1st. It's called Time Being, if I can make it, Time Being. And it really is the book that I wrote during the pandemic. I wrote 2 books during the pandemic. One is the Poetry and the Language of Oppression, essays on politics and poetics that meditate the essays on the creative process in the context of political turmoil, and sort of traces ways in which poetry can engage with traumatic events in history but also with ways in which we could write ourselves free, finding that language of freedom in writing. Is a very personal book, as much as it is an academic study of other people's poems and literature in general. But Time Being is almost like a journal. I've dated, I felt compelled during the pandemic because there was that sense that time is both flying very fast and stagnant at the same time. Our sense, because of the lockdown, our sense of time has completely changed. The routines changed, and many of the routines that we cherished went away completely. And so then the silence has become part of the contemplation of time. If you remember when the planes weren't flying, where there was no traffic on the streets, when you drove on the streets and there was nobody at all, we felt like we're driving through sort of ghost villages and towns here. It had this sense of both airy and oppressive influence on how we perceived time. So the book really deals with that strangeness, but with hearing nature for the first time in a very long time, and nature just kind of taking by surprise and taking over. So there was a sense of renewal for me at the same time as my own family collapsed, my marriage collapsed. So there is sort of, you could hear this quietude in a house within the quietude outside. So many people have gone through the same thing. I mean, many families have gone through the same thing, and many people suffered nervous breakdown because of the lockdown. So it's not anything new or special that I'm saying, but I recorded this sense of time in the poems. And I want to read, I thought it would be fun to read actually the poems that I wrote last year at this time, because they're dated so well, just sort of a return to the lockdown and the kids being remote, and just what we were seeing before, what we were seeing then. I will go for Waiting for Spring, which was written on 25th, February. Let's go straight to 1st of March. 1st of March. The snow across the yard rises in white drifts on the trees. Breath of earth. The low fog, taller than the children who sing like trilling robins in the middle of a late snowstorm. The thrills and dangers of spring chills give way to irrepressible possibility. Burgeoning buds, crocuses under snow. What now? Time to pluck the garden. Dream of summer feasts of sweet peas and tomatoes, watermelons, strawberries growing in the song of orioles. And we planted holy basil. I found seeds of holy basil, and then I wrote a piece for a religious journal on remembering the holy basil in my grandparents' yard. So that was all part of the part of last spring, just going back in time to the innocent time. But here's another one here. Let's go to 31 March, Hawk. He is not afraid of this wind that seems to move the air around like a pair of hands and turns my blue tablecloth into a sail. He appears directly above me, straight from the midday sun, swoops into the backyard with a war cry, his shadow darkening the grass. How he plays into the thermals, how he strides the currents, blinding sun rays through his wings It seems as if he wears a cloak of godly fire. He decelerates with accelerating ease, turns above the chimney so close to me. The sun stings my eyes full of him, but when I can see again, he's not there. 31 of March, and the poem is called Nest of Songs. I want to nestle you in the songs of orioles, waving mating calls across the maples. Their voices concolorous, suasive, whittling leaves from enchanted trees. This house withstood the test of isolation 4 seasons and one more, with just some paint peeling off the walls. But not you. You whittled in silence with the walls of one sentence, I do not know. Yet, here we are, above the ground, suspended between spring songs dangling in air all around the garden and the streets. Palms of the magnolia opening to say, hold this. 2 April 2021, daffodils. It's almost Easter. This Holy Week, the daffodils light up like candles in the sand trays at the altar. The cardinal's joyful whistling braids the 2 worlds. The crocus cups are filled for communion. Easter, and the poem is Mourning Dove Eggshell. Mourning doves nest everywhere here. I know them by their longing songs, turning the midday into a thought about being otherwhere in feelings. We're up there in the mind of questions of how the 2 of us and our children could settle in one place or another where we would somehow feel at ease. The same cooing music brings me back to the ground though, and settles me like the voice of someone I love, calling my name for reassurance that I'm still around, within reach. This Easter Sunday, the doves left a glossy white half shell in my path outside the kitchen door in the grass. An offering of news that their chicks now hatched around the garden. I took it for a scattered petal of magnolia at first, a windwim, but in my hand I saw it, a hint of happiness unseen. I turned the eggshell over in my palms to our children's mellifluous ahs and oohs, red signs from those in their smiles. Love poem. Somewhere in the depths of dreams, the sea calls. See on a clear day that lets you see to the bottom of it. I am told out. I'm quiet now. My head is in your hands. April 2021, and the name of the poem is Irenikon. I fear that what it was spent. We can no longer find ourselves or space for each other. I threw thousands of aster seeds around the mailbox where we go every day to look for other news. I said, we need to enclose the space with stones so that the lawnmowers won't kill the flowers before they grow. So there you are with our daughter, digging stones around the backyard and building a circle around the seeds. Busy with something to do, designing the shelter for what we could be seeing months from now, an address to what will become memory, a way to address each other, marking that which could grow inside us. I think I will read just two more poems that should be about the time of my 20 minutes here. So the first one is called 1st of May, and it's for a friend of mine back in Michigan. And it begins with an epigraph from Dante's Purgatorio, is really the 33rd canto, lines 140, 145, which I give you translated at the end of the poem. So bear with me with the Italian first. Io ritornai dalla Santissima Onda, rifatto sì come piante novelle, rinnovate di novella fronda, puro e disposto a salire alle stelle. 1 week of furious flowering when forsythia burns in gardens, magnolias open like butterflies, the ground fills with blue wild pansies, violets, and then the winds come stealing all the petals with their scented spells. The grass, a meadow of rhododendron, blooms early in the morning, the edges of the garden colored. Spring is passing once again, leaving chicks in nests, us outside planting, just as lilacs begin to bloom and summer shade of maples leafing. I try to hold my thoughts to all these images while I lift fresh curtains to hang on windows, where light will pass through, sheltering the eyes from too much sun, but letting them also see outside, where forsythia changes from yellow to green. The Orthodox Easter Lent at the end, praying with my children over new seeds we planted and the robins blessed with their songs. And here's the Dante translation. I emerged from the holiest waves, restored even as new trees were renewed with new leaves, pure and prepared to rise to the stars. And I'll end with one poem about my kids seeing their first strawberry come out from the strawberries that we planted. And this is actually 6 June, so we're fast forwarding to June. I thought it would be a good one to end with. Their first strawberry. They go to the garden several times a day to check on the tiniest shoots of lemon balm, the holy basil, rosemary, thyme, the tomato plants that now are sending forth first flowers. And they see how their strawberries grow. The first one blushing, yesterday's pink, ripe now. I have never seen more happiness in them. Brother and sister kneel by the bush to take the fruit of their labor from its stem. Her 9-year-old hands, his 14-year-old wise smile, somehow holding her and their garden in that mysterious glow that tells me they will be all right through these fractured days when parents weep and let go of each other. And when I see plainly how only half of the garden that I have planted 15 years ago has taken root and bears the first taste of harvest. Thank you so much.
Carmen, that was beautiful, and there will be a time at the end if you want to do more than one encore. There will be time for you to do that. Your poetry was so beautiful and so rich, and actually, I appreciate that you ended at 11:30, but we'll have a little bit of time at the end. So if you want to read more than one at the end, that's perfectly fine.
Thank you.
Okay, and just reflecting on the poetry, the beautiful, the way you went back in time, we felt like we were on a journey with you. You were describing all that was going on in your life, and I really felt we were there with you on that journey from waiting for spring and the reference to the holy basil. It's a story about my middle name Basil. I learned that I need to learn more later on about holy basil. The wonderful image of the hawk, and suddenly realizing the hawk wasn't there. The nest of songs, and with the paint peeling, kind of the contract there. The discussion of the cardinals, appearing on April 2nd, and the beautiful poem about morning, the morning dove Easter shell, talking about Easter, just so timely in terms of us going into Easter. That love poem that concluded with my head is in your hands, and the story for your friends in April, and the birds, and just that wonderful image at the end of your two children, knowing that they'll get through this, they'll be okay. Just a beautiful sharing. Really, really appreciate that. Okay, so we're going to switch over to the next phase of the program. So just bear with me a second while I change screens. So there's the open read. For the open read, we ask you to enter your name in chat, and there are quite a few names in chat. So if you haven't put your name in chat, please do, and I will call you in groups of 3. Please, only one poem and no more than 5 minutes. We don't have the bandwidth to go beyond 5 minutes, and we don't have the bandwidth to do more than one poem. Please, out of respect for the other poets, keep your microphone muted, and please wait to be called upon. And then at the end, we're going to call back Carmen for an encore. I'm hoping that she's going to read more than one. And then Richard will close the program. And I assure you, between Kathy, myself, and Richard, we'll make sure that anyone who wants to read will have a chance to read. So please try to respect those ground rules. And in terms of the order, we're going to start in groups of 3. James, then Victoria, and then Sherry. So James, over to you. I understand you've got a tribute poem you want to read. Go ahead, James. James, you got to put your microphone on.
Okay, here we are.
Yep.
Okay, so here's my poem. Here's a poem I dedicated to, he was Lester Deschler, and he got killed at Normandy. It's called Looking Back Long Ago. We had been looking back long ago, while time crept by, seeming so slow. Distance between time kept spreading, may do something they were dreading. On a broad beach, boots hit the sand, after looking at sight of a lonely land. Let me lower it down a little bit. I'll tell you what, I'll just do it over here. On shore was blowing a light breeze, exposed enemy on hills and up in trees. Explosions and bullets sounded so loud. Later that day, heads would be bowed, thanking God that he let them survive, being in one piece and remaining alive. At Normandy, we each dutifully performed, when the troops were on shore had all stormed. Only thing which was left that remained had been blown to bits or blood stained. Thank you.
Thank you, James. That's just someone at Normandy. That's, if anyone who's ever been to Normandy and you look at it, that sea of stones, you recognize the sacrifice of those people. Thank you for that. Victoria, over to you.
Hi, everybody. Always nice to see you. And I'm so grateful that I can still visit you via Zoom, even though I'm not on Long Island anymore. So it's wonderful you keep going. But anyway, so this poem is called Addition and Subtraction. How much does the sky weigh at any one time when counting all things that fly, that intermingle and evaporate, that rise and fall, all things hidden from our view. Do the gods calculate such things, standing on the clouds in their rhinestone sandals? One came to me through my open window on a summer night when I was a child, hiding inside my heart. Her hair a radiant curtain gently lifted. She smelled of green cut grass and wore a dress of soft white mooncloth. She smiled, and when she spoke, a sparkle of fireflies floated out into the air. Believe, she said, and gave me a tiny pearl covered in wings to swallow. Use this to float up to the sky, and you will be counted. What is the power of hope when compared to the density of darkness? What is the weight of the gravity beneath our beds? What is the weight of the sky when we arrive? Do the gods consider such things?
Thank you, Victoria. That's a very powerful contrast, the power of hope against the density of darkness. Very well said. Okay, so now we're over to Sherry.
Good morning, everyone. Carmen, thank you for sharing your art this morning, and Daniel, Richard, and Kathy for making this event possible for all of us to enjoy. I'm going to read Prams for Peace. Carts, prams, strollers, carriages, lined up at train stations, some with blankets, toys, supplies, waiting for Ukraine women to use in their bombing escape. Lined up in rows in Lviv Roynok Square are more little prams, hollow. Each represents a precious child murdered. A new mother sits on a train floor, breasts heavy, aching with milk, body in need of rest, nutrients, not enough diapers, wipes, or clean clothes to care for her baby or herself. She is stoic, hearing children cry. My daddy stayed behind as she emigrates. Debarking, observed, laden with her belongings and newborn's cries, a soldier greets her, holds her baby, gives her water, a pram. A new mother, a half world away, whose toes and soles bleed, skin burns, her body, teeth, bones decay from hundreds of miles walked. Carrying her newborn, under a merciless sun, each step brings her closer to death without water or food or rest. Yet unwavering in her calling, she emigrates. A young mother is cramped on a brittle wood plank boat, adrift in a black raging sea, no water to drink. Contemplates sipping a salt drop to stop this desperate thirst, holding her soundless baby. Grit in her eyes, she emigrates. Mother refugees attempting to escape, terrors unspeakable, some hold on, some die. Trying to find an anywhere horrors are less, if she can make it through one more day, just one more day. Fears of more bullets, attack dogs, whips, or walls are still less dangerous than fates left behind. Mothers prevailing for tiny bundled souls at their precious beginnings, who know not of war, prejudice, judgment, or brutality. Oh, I hope we meet and continue to meet all brave women with prams, with water, with respite, warmth, drops of compassion collecting to pour upon each astonishing courage endured. A mother's love could end all world wars, shootings, killings, greeting each other with prams for peace. Thank you.
Beautiful, Sherry. You captured, I think, what all we've seen and have been feeling just in a very beautiful way. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, the next group of three are Bruce, Anthony, and Nanette. So Bruce, over to you first.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. First of all, thank you, Carmen, for sharing your intellect and experience. It was beautiful. And thank you, Dan, Kathy, and Richard. This is called Yet Another War Prayer. And I have to tip my hat to Mark Twain. Father of the deepest silence, maker of astounding violence, magnificent usurper, into whose arms we surrender the old, the young, the daughters, and the sons. Give us this day our daily blood, and bless us with your swift sorrow. Hold back the hand of kindness and smash forgiveness. Let us long remember grievance, small or large, and teach us to trust the first impulse. Father of hopelessness, turn our grief to madness. Make us deaf to reason and to all reasons that do not justify you. Breaker of the most durable hearts, make us numb to the slaughter of innocence and teach us the futility of love in the face of you. Crafter of rubble, twister of steel, raiser of cities, crush in us any desire for human progress. For it is upon your altar our soldiers are sanctified, and through you alone that we are glorified. Now and ever, we take comfort in the cold certainty that for your sake, so many boldly die, and so many so cynically lie. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce, for that very thought-provoking poem. Anthony, over to you. Anthony, you got to come off mute. Should be a little icon. There you go. You're on.
There you go. I want to thank Barbara Southard for inviting me to write Kathy and ask if I could be a featured speaker, which I will be next month. And as I started reading Carmen's poetry, I realized she's a very tough act to follow, but hopefully a month will go by and people, it'll be hard to recall her powerful poetry, but I'll continue reading, Carmen. Beautiful, beautiful work. In the spirit of Carmen, I want to read a bird poem. There's some beautiful bird poems that Carmen read. So I'll read this one. It's called Crow Envy. Get up on my screen. I'm pumping gas and these two crows high at a lamppost just above me, caw in tandem. First one, then the other, pumping up and down, jaunty, as if mocking me for needing fuel, when all they need to do is spread their wings and take off, but they don't. Like pistons, up and down, they caw, first one, then another, and then others across the way answering back. Beneath their lofty sight, I am reduced and mocked, though I know it is arrogant to think they give a damn about us, except for what we leave behind when we leave. They are smart, no doubt. I've seen one use a leaf for a sled to slide down the snow on a pitched roof again and again, carrying the leaf back up like a driver's license, and then surfing on the snow. And we thought we've inherited the earth, caretakers. We should know better, that the earth will take care of us one way or the other. When I put the pump back in its slot, the crows take off as if I'm no longer at their merciless mock. Behind the wheel, I feel how weak we are to depend on so much when it must be far better just to lift one's wings and take off. How sweet it must be to see us from above, to go as high as one needs to silence whatever we're doing. With all those trees, a possible perch from which to laugh or mock, how we have only the one road ahead, eyes glued behind a streaky windshield, not the vista that sees at a glance what's coming, what's going, while knowing at some point we'll leave it all behind. Thank you.
Thank you, Anthony. We'll definitely look forward to next week, and the renewed respect for crows. Thank you for that. Okay, the next group of three that we have are going to be Oh, I'm sorry, we still have Nanette. I'm sorry, Nanette, over to you.
Hi, thank you. Thank you, everybody, for having this wonderful reading. It's about the 5th reading I've had in the last 2 days that I've seen. It's really great. April's my favorite month. And Carmen, I just love your work. I love hearing you and everyone else. This poem is called Eye Teeth. In the morning, with winter settling into my bed, the cat's draped across me. I shiver, knowing my eye teeth are gone. I feel the sockets, the soft tissue where the teeth had rooted. They're gone, and my heart begins to pound. I comfort myself and accept that I can live without them, but the shame overwhelms me. My teeth were firmly placed once again as sleep peeled away, and with it my dreams. I am so relieved and happy. Then I remember your ashes lying in the cold ground.
Very, very moving, Nanette. Thank you. Okay, over to the next group of 3 is Herb, Triumph, and then Dan. So Herb, over to you first.
Okay, you can hear me all right?
Yes?
Okay, very good. Thank you. Love Whispers, April 1981, in memoriam for my late espoused Saint Lorenda. The chilly wind rustled the tree's short leaf hair. Even though it was the middle of April, it was a very cool day in Anaheim. The north wind, the culprit. We had been reading to each other in our backyard, but soon our noses glowed Rudolph red. We came inside and cuddled before the fireplace. I remember we were soon much more than merely warm. We crazy crawled into the bedroom with our bodies bound together. We bounced into bed. The room filled with love whispers. Of course, those love whispers very quickly turned to sounds that resounded much more loudly. After a crescendoing consummation of our love, we reclined on a cumulus cloud. Then we were whispering again, reminiscing about our past while relating fantasies for our future. Our reveries were soon replaced by caresses. Finding renewed energy, we decided to shower together, as was our custom. In the shower, we glistened like large, dewy rose petals, glistening under a bright morning sun. You imagined, you said, that we were standing under a mild waterfall in a tropical forest. Later, joined with softly whispered I love yous, were sharp cries from our daughter, Stephanie. You sighed, damn, it sounds like reality has reached us, honey. Stephanie's awake, and she's probably wetter than we are. Thank you.
Beautiful, Herb. You know, it's I was thinking of the Songs of Solomon. That could have been an addition to that. Just beautiful, beautiful sharing of a wonderful, wonderful time. Okay. Okay, so now we go from Herb, Triumph, over to you.
Thank you, Dan. Let me see, hold on.
We can hear you fine.
Okay. And I'm trying to pull the poem. Hold on one second. Okay. So yeah, thank you for giving me the opportunity then to read the poem. Actually, this is a poem written by my late beloved uncle back in Albania. He was a poet, an intellectual, and anti-communist dissident. So this poem is in Albanian, but I'm gonna literally translate that in English first. And then this, after that, I'll give you a nice opportunity to hear how that sounds in another language. And this poem, actually, he has a series of poems written. This one is titled Rain. It's almost like a poem from a gentleman to his girlfriend that comes to the usual meeting at the cafe. She comes a little bit sad, and he starts by saying, I can hear the rain outside, and there is a silence, just like the tears I can see in your face, but I see also a ray of peace. And the cold day, look and see the rain flowing. I can hear and I can see the breeze of the mountain pass, and I can see the autumn on a branch of the tree. But also I see your lips that hold your words, and that me cause to be more on the side of the pain and longing. Tell me today why you are so sad. Let your sad thought go away with the rain. Let's go with our boat away. Let's go away and forget the sad thoughts. As always, the time flies, filled with sadness, but there is no better thing in the world when we can wail for our sadness together with the rain. So now I'm going to read this one in Albanian. I just let you know, I just was reading out of it, and I literally translated it as I was reading it in my mind in Albanian here. So it starts shiu. Ndigjoj pikat që po bin, në heshtje si lotët mbi faqe, e në ty ka ra një reze paqe e ftoft dita këshyrshin. Po ikën malit shushurima, nën thame deg ku vjeshta qanë, kur mu në buz fjalet i mban, më shpijet e mali e të dhima. Ti thuaje pseje sot në trishtime, let ikin mendimet me shin, dhe eja me lundrën që na ndrin, eja me mu e këndej në harime. Si kur doher kalon kjo kohë, plot me trishtim dhe hidhërim, s'ka gjë më të bukur në këtë botë kur vajton bashkë me shin. The end. Thank you.
Thank you, Triumph, for sharing that beautiful poetry and a little bit of Albanian culture. I do think that the language, as they say, carries the culture. So we thank you for that. And bring along some friends from Caroline with you next time.
Yes.
Triumph is
This belongs mostly to the age of the romanticism in the poem genre, if we can quantify it in a sense.
Thank you, Triumph. Okay, next poet is Dan, and that's me. But I'm not going to read my own poem. I'm going to read, let me just change my screen here. I'm going to read a poem that was actually sent in. And this poem was sent in by Mike Daly. And Mike Daly, many of you know, I've referenced Mike Daly in the past. Mike Daly is one of our poets from North Carolina, and he's author of this book of poetry, Somewhere Tonight a Soldier Stands, and certainly very much in keeping with the poem that James read earlier about his uncle at Normandy. And Gladys Henderson is with us. She's not going to read today, but she's there. Welcome, Gladys. And Gladys was the one who taught me that poetry is but a means of prayer. So I thought of that when I got this email from Mike Daly this morning. He says, I'll be unable to read at the Saturday Poetry tomorrow. Our church is having a cantata and I have to sing in the choir. I would appreciate if you could read this poem. When I wrote it and I read it, I could hear an old gospel hymn. It's something that should be sung. And here goes his poem, Mike Daly. Singing his praise. When your days are the darkest and you need someone with open arms, he bids you come to sing out your songs, and with them raise praise and know he hears you, and hearing you saves. When our Lord asked Noah to build him an ark, he knew that soon days with rain would be dark. He never faltered, but labored for days. And when the ark floated, he sang songs of praise. When Lazarus lay there for 3 days in death, they called on our Savior, and our Lord gave him breath. The people all gathered and sang to the Lord, and singing his praises, their spirits all soared. So when our days darken and we're feeling undone, with open arms, he still bids us come. If we raise our voices in songs of praise, our Lord will hear us, and hearing us say, feel a need to say amen. Amen. Okay. All right. I think we've gotten everybody now who wanted to read. So let's just check and see, looking at all the images on screen, if there's anyone who wanted to read that didn't have a chance to read. Okay, JR, wouldn't be a poetry reading without you, JR. Come off mute, and we look forward to what you have to share.
Terrific. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, everyone. And happy National Poetry Month. What an amazing thing we have here. I just left Salisbury Poetry Week from Maryland. I'm here now, and I'm going to be racing off to East Meadow Library to host live and in person. Like, wow. So if anybody's game. So in the spirit of gratitude for poetry, this is for Kathy, because this was the beginnings of this event, this reading event. Behind the vines. Mother vines stand sentinel behind us, roots in rhythmic rows, tendrils stretching to tower over stretched wires, as handrails for 3 pointed leaves off stems await labor of clustered purple globes, a Merlot in the making, fermented on whispered breeze beyond the season's end. We face a forest of birdsong homes, a study in dappled chlorophyll secreting chipmunks, and an orchard of sunlit limbs. I inhale a chorus of love songs, and a finger wind lifts sun gold tresses to nuzzle my neck. Yet we turn our heads right, an oasis of sky, stanzas of clouds stack one on another in a serenade of whites to inspire relaxed sighs. A trellis of treetops swagger as though puppets in the firmament. Somewhere below is a crest of water, whether ocean or sea or rivered canals, a harmony of knowing it is there, whether I see it or not. For now, a carpet to tickle toes, poetry to titillate creative souls, and Mother Earth in all light, in all breeze, in all songs to nurture us in harmony behind the vines. Thank you all. Happy National Poetry Month.
Thank you for taking us behind the vines, maybe for a little sip of Merlot too. Okay. Okay, we have a request from Shu who would like to read again. Shu, we're so grateful that you join us every month, and I think every month you come, you read a poem, which is great. So Shu, over to you. You got to turn your mic on.
Hello, everyone. The title of this poem is The Cruelest Month. So it's from,
Shu, can you come closer to the microphone a little bit? Because you have a lot of, echo on your room. Put the microphone a bit closer to your mouth.
well, I said probably the closest I can. Is that better now?
That's fine, Shu. Thank you, Triumph.
Okay.
That's fine,
That
Shu.
much better, yeah.
Thank you.
T.S. Eliot, in his famous poem, The Wasteland, is beginning as this. April is the cruelest month. Thus is the title. So because, with all this going on around the world, this poem a little bit desperate. I posted it in the chat so you can read along.
Shu, you lost your sound. We see the poem in chat, but you lost your voice. You must have turned off your mic.
Yeah, she is muted. She is muted. Okay.
On an April 1,000 years ago, Jesus was crucified by the creature created in God's image, human being. War ravaged every inch of land. Hatred deepened after each killing. Family destroyed in the bomb explosion. Beneath the red grass and the black sands, the groans of war victims shaking the earth. Jesus, have you ever regretted for your sacrifice? The birds lost their sky. The fish lost their ocean. The animals lost their forest. In the shadow of the skyscraper, homeless are shivering in cold night. Far away from the food-filled garbage can, someone is dying of hunger. The once paradise now is a hell. God, have they ever regretted for your creation? April, the cruelest month, the Christ was killed by those he tried to save.
Thank you. Thank you, Shu. Very moving and certainly very timely going into Holy Week.
One moment, Dan. I wanted to show James Horn something he asked for. James, look at this. That's a ring. That's a school ring. That's what you said. Looks like a school ring. It is a school ring. Stony Brook.
Okay. Thank you, Triumph. There'll be plenty of time. We have our unstructured yak at the end where we can do things like that, but thank you. Okay, so at this point, let's see if there's anyone else who would like to read. And let's go around the room. And Kathy and Richard, if you could help me. And Kathy, thank you. Always look forward to Kathy reading at the end. I see you, Kathy. Go ahead.
So the first thing I would like to just say is, Carmen, that was a beautiful read. Thank you so very, very much. I always feel like transported to Romania with some of your childhood poems. And it reminds me of the book I read, which was just a fantastic read. You are, I think, amongst the best of us, for sure. And to Judy, you know, Behind the Vines, I went down Harbor Road looking for a place to have the venue, always in person back then. This was 2014, I want to say. And they said at the winery, sure, but you have to go outside and we have a big field. Well, the field was behind all the grapevines. So back there we went. It was a bit of a struggle for some people to walk back there. But anyway, I said to him, what happens when it rains? We can come inside. They had a big room for reading. And he said, no, you'll just have to cancel. And so that was the last time we were at that winery. So we went to another. Finding a place for a venue is a difficult thing, actually. And being on Zoom is fantastic. And All Souls has been a home. We found a home. We've never been asked to move along. And here we are on Zoom. So I think sometimes we're guided towards things that are better than we would ever imagine. So with that imagination, I've written a poem called Transportation, because I think that, you know, there are many things going on in the world. Ukraine has, of course, got our attention right now for good reason. But global warming looms large. And for all the things we might fight for, if we don't fight to undo global warming, if it's even possible at this point, it may all be for naught. Not to be dark. So I imagined the car going away, and I call this poem Transportation. Everything I do, I need to rethink. If the car was suddenly put down, I take my life into my own hands each morning during the rush, ride my bicycle for 30 minutes east, face the hordes commuting west towards the city. But wait. If no other cars were on the road, bicycles facing bicycles, everyone getting thinner, more fit, adept at steering handlebars, pedaling in tandem, need only inches to park. I think this might not be so bad. Change holidays to bad weather days. Every day, a surprise.
Thank you, Kathy. trying to imagine a world without cars. I think you took us there. So,
You know, it's funny, you know, when you go to the airport and you can get on that walkway that's moving for you,
mhm.
I tried to envision one of those down the middle of the expressway so that you could get to the city very quickly with the road moving for you. This is total fantasy, of course, but
Well, H.G. Wells actually wrote a novel with that in the novel.
is that right?
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
I'll share it later.
Okay, I don't see anyone else who wanted to read. Now, if you've got your video camera, I can see you waving. So if you're not on camera and you want to read, then you have to come off mute. So we'll wait there a second. Going once, going twice.
Did Bruce read?
Who spoke up there?
I'm just looking at everyone.
I don't see anyone. Okay.
Barbara Siegel. Barbara, you want to read? She's not there.
Yep. Okay. Carmen, over to you for an encore. And if anyone comes in at the end, we'll find a spot for him.
Okay. I see Melva's name. Yep.
Melva, did you want to read?
No, thank you. I just want to listen.
Okay, that's fine.
Thank you.
Carmen,
Melva.
Carmen, over to you then.
Okay, thank you so much. So we did say, and I did say that it would be no talk about the war, and no, but you guys are inspiring me. So it feels more fitting to end with two poems. One is specifically written, is a prayer for Europe, is specifically written at the beginning of the war in Ukraine. I wrote it on 27 February. And the other one is an older poem that was already published, but it goes back to, it's a prayer, it's sending love to refugees because of the flood of refugees everywhere now in Europe, and especially back to my country. And as a refugee, I can totally relate to what's going on in there. So it would be two prayers, really. Somebody was saying that poetry as a prayer is important. Here's the prayer for Europe. The warring language floats in the winter air at the words of one dictator. People forget preparations for Clean Monday to begin the war. Across the border, children wake up in the night to the sound of bombs. A neighborhood grocery store will turn to ruin. An old man, together with young women, will take up their guns to join the army. Old mistrust rises, poisoning words. If I could halt this madness with a call to prayer, a reminder of old kindnesses we all so easily tend to forget. Today, Europe is a woman whose body has been sliced by the birthing knife over and over, her cesarean wound badly patched, birth after birth, her womb crisscrossed, fresh, hardened along ridges of history written in blood. Protect its life-giving womb, slice her no more. Consider the early patches of snowdrops under the wheels of the tanks. Would those who fly the bomber planes notice the change of seasons in the sky for the peace it would bring and fly back home? Will neighborly kisses, kindness, revisit memory? The world lifts its hands in prayer as Europe suffers. This is no birth. And I'll end up with a poem that I actually wrote on November 17, 2020, when my family and I celebrated 31 years since we immigrated to America, since we arrived in Michigan as political refugees. And I think many of you would know the background of my family. My father spent 12 years in communist prisons in Romania, and we were taken here by the American Embassy. On this day, we send our love. 31 years ago today, the other end of the world stung as if we were looking directly into the sun. Since then, we learned to look at the sunlit ground. On this day, we send our love to those who are scaling the wall, those who are stepping on a precarious raft, those who are hiding in the boxes stacked on a truck. We know it isn't play or malice that make you take this road. On this day, we send our love and our hopes that you will land as we did on the verdant earth among welcoming people. The ground has fallen from under you, we know, just like the road vanished from under our feet. On this day, when we recall those first days of freedom, we send you our love, for you will need every kind word. And I'll end it here for today. Thank you.
Thank you, Carmen. Beautiful. Okay, Richard, over to you for any concluding remarks, and then I'll bring up the next speaker as well. Richard, you got to come off mute.
First of all, thanks to everyone for sharing their poetry. And of course, a special thanks to Carmen for reading her beautiful and powerful poems in this work, this new collection that's just been published. It was just remarkable. I'm looking forward very much to next month. And let's wait for that. And what I would say is, of course, I can read what you're all seeing there in Anthony DiMatteo's background, but I think for me, what was really terrific was to have him here today and to read a poem, which is like a prelude to next month. And I think we're really in store for a wonderful reading. You can see, that his background as a translator, a scholar, a chair of the English department, administrator, so a very, very broad and practical, interesting background. And I look forward to actually hearing the poems. Yeah, today's poem was really just a temptation into the future. It was very nicely done. Thank you so much, Anthony.